This is Brother Shareef with the Hour of Power with Dr. Herndon here at First Chronicles Baptist Church. Is that correct?
Community Church.
First Chronicles Community Church. Yes. So we're here in Durham, North Carolina. This is the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Shareef Hamid. Subscribe and share the channel. Subscribe and share. So this is my good friend, Dr. Herndon, pastor, educator, author with the book. I don't know if you brought your book or not, but we can talk about it. So today's topic, we're talking about what would Jesus really say. And this is an honor because you're a good friend of mine, and we have two faiths coming together to bring about some kind of understanding and camaraderie, not about talking about what we don't agree on, but what we do agree on, which is much more. And we have so many issues going on in our community that being at odds because of differences in religion, that's really, to me, that's not the main priority right now. It's our youth, which is the future. Dr. Herndon, you want to tell us about yourself to the audience?
Yes, first of all, let me just thank you and applaud you for all the great work that you're doing in the community and actually around the country, because we're living in some difficult times. I think that most of us would agree. And as you so elegantly stated from the onset, that I'm very concerned about young people and what we have to offer in our communities. And just to tell you a little bit about me, of course, I grew up here in Durham, North Carolina, completed the Durham Public Schools, North Carolina Central University, and has done a host of things and has been very blessed to do so. Also have traveled to 22 countries in 37 states. And I say that because I think the more global we look at the issues, and as we seek to find solutions, we have to look from a wide perspective. I think oftentimes what we do is that we look for a very local, we look within ourselves, rather than understanding that God made a big world and there's tons of people in it, and we have to begin to look beyond our neighborhoods and communities and our states and our country. And so I'm excited about this opportunity, and you know, you and I have met before, and there is so much that we're going to talk about today as we continue to embrace the idea that we have to live the world in a much better place than we found it.
Right. And again, we met at the Rites of Passage, which is a boys group here in North Carolina, even though it's a national program. But what we do here in North Carolina is we teach boys responsibility, culture, finances, and their history through an African concept and scope called the Rites of Passage, which is an age-old program to help, you know, our boys in our community. That's how we met. And from the beginning, when I was teaching the Black history, you always supported me.
Yes, sir.
In what I did. So that's where our connection came in, and we're going to continue to do things to help our youth, because again, our youth aren't worried about, you know, labels and titles. They
That's
just
right.
need love, nourishment, and an alternative solution to what's going on and what they see, and what a lot of it is not their fault of what, some of the challenges that they have. And talking about the youth, since I work in the school system and be around a lot of youth, I think identity is a huge issue with Black youth. Like almost every other youth you see, they have some kind of identity. If you ask a Chinese child, like, who are you? They'll say, I'm Chinese. If you ask an Italian child, who are you? They'll say, I'm Italian. But if you ask a Black child, who are you? You may get 10 different, you know, responses to kind of show, you know, some of the confusion that's going on with us. So like getting right to it, what do you think about the issue of the true identity of Jesus? Do you think that's something that's important, or you think that's just something we should sweep under the rug, or it doesn't matter what his color was?
Well, let's just launch right out, because what I like about the question is that I'm going to ask a question that was inherent in your first question about identity.
Mm-hmm.
Jewish parent teaches Jewish kids. Irish parent teaches Irish parents. Hispanic parents teach Hispanic kids.
Mhm.
Our kids, and when I say our kids, our African American kids, are put into a school or institution to where they are taught by someone outside of their community, outside of their culture. And so our children then find it difficult in order to participate in the educational process the way other groups do, because they don't understand their history and culture.
Mhm.
So, the answer to your question, it is very important for our children to understand, or for all of us to understand, the world to understand, the true identity of Jesus Christ. Well, if you look back in the Bible, it specifically states that his skin was dark.
Mhm.
If you look back in the Bible, it specifically states that his hair was sheep wool. So now, and then if for all of those individuals who have some difficulties with the Eurocentric part and the understanding of Jesus Christ, then Jesus Christ would have had to come from the motherland, and the motherland is what? Africa. And so not only in our education, but in our religion, our children have to feel good about themselves, have to feel good about what they can contribute to world society. And so inherent in that, once you understand that Jesus was of color, then I think that you will understand and connect with the teaching in our faith.
So basically, not just color-wise, but ethnicity and race, he was an African.
Absolutely.
Because he was born on the continent of Africa. I think that gets missed. I think a lot of people are starting to come around and say, yeah, he was black, but very rare do I see anyone attach that label to him that he was African, because he was born in Egypt, right?
That is correct.
And Egypt is on the continent of Africa. So I think not just children, but a lot of adults, they're not placing geography right, or they don't have a clear understanding of geography, because, correct me if I'm wrong, have you heard that label attached to Jesus that he was an African? I've been hearing more that he's black, but very rare do I hear anyone say he was an African.
Absolutely. Well, you know, when you go into the history books or you have the conversation, some people will say that Africa or Egypt is a part of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you know your geography, we know that Egypt is in Africa, and Africa is not a part of the Middle East. So the confusion is there, and that's why it is so important for us to have these kinds of cultural awareness opportunities for the real history can be told.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we gotta, hopefully for the listening audience and those who see it, I think we got a better understanding on the identity of Jesus. To me, it was never a debate, and true indeed, his character should reign supreme over his color. But if it wasn't important, the powers that be wouldn't go to such extent to change his identity, and I don't think we would accept that from anyone else. Like if someone gave us a false image of our grandmother and said one person is our grandmother, and it's clear that it wasn't, we wouldn't accept that.
That's
so with him being such a huge part of many people's lives, depending on the background, I think his identity, like you said, is important. So thank you for bringing clarity on that. On current issues, what do you think Jesus would say about our present president and some of the things that's going on with him?
Well, thank you again for another awesome question. My heart is very heavy with the direction that our country is going. I would think that if Jesus was here today, his heart would be very heavy. Because Jesus was not about division, he was about love.
Okay.
Jesus was not about putting one group above another group. Jesus came to save the world. He didn't come just to save Asia or save the United States or England or whatever. He came to save the world. And our president, who calls himself the most powerful leader of the free world, need to begin to start look beyond the United States. The United States happen to be one of the industrialized nations. And as we serve Jesus throughout the world, then we can never put ourselves above any issue, above any situation, above any crisis that are going on around the world, because Jesus is love.
Yeah. When you talk about any issue, you seem to be real nonchalant and almost uncompassionate about what's going on in Puerto Rico, which is a part of the United States. I'm not even sure if he realizes that, but his attitude towards Puerto Rico seemed to be real nonchalant. If someone was in need outside of where Jesus was doing his ministry, how do you think he would handle what we're seeing with Puerto Rico?
There is just so many stories and so many opportunities in the holy text where it is referred to is who is your neighbor. Mm-hmm. Puerto Rico is our neighbor. Mm-hmm. Puerto Rico is a neighboring country. And so when you go back into the text, it says, who is your neighbor? Anyone who is in need. Mm-hmm. Who are in need at this particular time? Mm-hmm. Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. Who is in need right now? The Gulf of Mexico, which is Galveston, and all of the cities that was affected by the hurricanes and the storms. Mm-hmm. So again, the individual who calls himself the president have to take it as a beloved community, as a beloved neighbor.
Two quick questions on that. First, to your knowledge, does Mr. Trump consider himself to be a Christian?
Well, that's an interesting question, because we know that several months ago, I think I recall, and if I need to be corrected, then I should be, that it was a group of evangelicals who went into the White House and had a prayer, and if he invited the evangelicals in to have a prayer, then one would assume that it was Christian. Mm-hmm. And so with that, the position with the office of the presidency, and if you allow the evangelicals to come in, then one would assume that you're a Christian. And if you are a Christian and you are in charge of this country, then you should be using Christian principles.
Right. Okay. Second, so we talked about what happened with what's happening in Puerto Rico, which is absolutely heart-wrenching. Backing up a couple weeks, what happened in Houston, it was a lot of controversy, so to speak, with Joel Osteen.
Correct.
And I don't know all the details, but with social media, everything gets out there. And they said he didn't open up his door to, like you said, people in need. Do you think that was a fair criticism with him being, not only a pastor, but someone who's a head of a mega church? Do you think that was a fair criticism of what went on, to your knowledge?
Well, I'm going to pivot. And the reason that I'm going to pivot to your question is because I don't know what the facts are. Mm-hmm. But this is what I would say: small church, medium-sized church, mega church. If we're going to be the called out ones, if we're going to be the clergy group who is supposed to look out for all people, then we should open our doors at all times. Mm-hmm. Now the question then becomes is, what does it mean by open your door? And the short answer is, it can mean 2 or 3 different things. In our community, right now we have faith communities that provide food, clothing, and shelter. And so all of the individuals that was affected by the storms needed food, clothes, and shelter. Mm-hmm. Also, there are faith communities that provide financial assistance. So again, the faith community should support with financial assistance. So each organization or each church or masjid or synagogue is going to have to look within themselves to find out what is their ministry's mission and objective. And so one would say with a certain amount of finality that we all should support individuals that are affected by the storm.
Right, and it shouldn't be on just one, church or organization to do everything. I think you hit the nail on the head inadvertently when you said church, synagogue, masjid, which is another word for mosque. If all of us come together, my motto has always been, if everyone does a little, no one has to do a lot.
Absolutely.
So if we come together, no matter what the need is, that takes the burden off of one particular individual, church, or organization to serve the needs of many, because it's so many needs. You don't need a storm or a hurricane to see that our community, especially us, is in need. So I think it's just a matter of us putting our egos aside and small differences aside and seeing how we can serve the people.
Absolutely. And just like the ministry we're setting in here, I applaud the great pastor and the leadership in this ministry, because this ministry is surrounded by neighborhoods, is surrounded by communities, and they do a fantastic job here in reaching out to the community.
Switching gears a little bit, do you think, based off of Christian values, since the topic is what would Jesus say, do you think parents are teaching our present day youth basic principles like compassion and love?
Sure.
And the reason I ask that is we've had some stories that's been documented that shows everything but compassion and love. One I did on my channel where teens actually recorded a man drowning in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and they laughed at him and watched him drown. He actually went down 3-4 times, and they sat there and recorded, laughed, said, "We're not going to help you. You shouldn't have got out there. That's on you." And they found this man, he drowned in the ocean, not in the ocean, in a river. 5 days later, they found his body. They didn't call the cops. They didn't do anything. I mean, I just can't fathom watching a human being drown like that. And they sat there and laughed. And then the more recent one is our sister in Chicago in the hotel, Kanika Jenkins. I don't know all the details, but it looks like her friends may have set her up, and I don't know what all happened to her, but something happened to her. But it started with this party, at the hotel, and her friends were there with her, and it seems like she died a vicious death on her own. They found her in the freezer. So again, do you think parents are teaching their children, Christian values of compassion and helping someone in need?
I'm reminded, as I was trying to be a good steward of your question, I'm reminded of a situation in Atlanta a couple of years ago where a parent allowed the child to have a 16 or 18-year-old party. And it started out, I think the parents gave the child permission to have 15 or 20 individuals. And then somehow it got on social media, and over 200 individuals showed up. So I'm of the opinion that we do have parents who are trying to teach Christian values. We do have parents who are teaching empathy, compassion, and all of those things. But today we live in a world society, a world community, and in schools or what have you, we have individuals from all the many different countries that we have over 250 plus countries. And now our communities are growing and developing or whatever. Our parents have to be intentional when we teach our children about love and compassion. Our parents have to be intentional about sharing the limits when we have a party or where your child goes. Look at the situation where the individuals who join with fraternity, and these kids actually through hazing kill the kid, a student.